Mr. Turkington, how we doing?
Fantastic, man. How are you?
I am doing awesome. I cannot believe this market, this housing market. I can't believe it.
It continues to be a frenzy.
Whew. So we always say, where the heck is everyone getting their cash from to buy these houses? These homes are, 20% last year. We're looking at, it feels like 10% again this year, maybe.
Just really, really strong numbers, obviously driven by more demand than there is supply. And we joke about that every week. It's like, when is it going to start to get a little bit easier or shift more in the buyer's favor? And gosh darn it, we've been talking about it for about 48 weeks in a row.
All right. So if you're listening right now and you guys are in the market or thinking about getting into the market, this is going to be a fun one for everybody. It's something that we don't really do deep dive on much, but we have to now. Why do we have to now? Why is this so important in your discussions with the consumer, both at the initial discovery call and then at the strategy call?
Right, so there are a ton of loan programs available designed to help people buy, whether it's their first home or to get into a home and make it so that it's agreeable on their cash or out of their pocket expenses possible. That's one side of the mix. Those programs are still there. We've talked about down payment assistance in the past. There's all kinds of things, loan programs, initiatives out there to help people in that spot. The problem is, in today's marketplace, you never have the ability to get the seller's undivided attention. There's always 3, 4, 5, 6 other people chirping that say, hey, I have interest in that home. So that's what's changed everything, because of those 4 or 5 other parties, somebody's got more cash to work with than the minimum down payment options that exist. So it's challenging people to say, hey, this is ideal, but what do I need to do to win?
Fascinating. When I'm hearing you say that, I'm trying to follow where is the money? Who has it? Does the seller have it from the equity buildup they've had over the last 24 months? Does the buyer have it in cash? Does the buyer's parents have it in the equity buildup in the home they're in? So obviously the first thing that we do is say, okay, all right, how much do you have liquid? What's in the local checking savings? What can you get your hands on that you've accumulated or saved on your own? That's one of the very first things that you do. But that's not what we're going to talk about here. We want to talk about alternative sources, all the creative different things that we have to do to help people get the seller's undivided attention so they can win. Anything you want to add to that?
It's always been fascinating to me when we start the conversation of what they have and what's available, and then when we end up with them buying a home, what they were able to get their hands on and where it came from. So the information that you're talking about or getting ready to share, I think is super helpful to plant a seed with people, because, we joke about this coming from Michigan. When you buy a house, you could spend more time shopping for a winter coat than when you walk into the house and all of a sudden you feel it and you say, this is where I'm supposed to be. So whatever your initial plans are may go out the window, and it's like, what do I need to do to make this work? So there's I don't know if that made sense, but there's, all right, here's where we're starting, and then where you finish, man, that can be a crazy ride. And these things we're going to talk about, I think, are helpful to plant a seed to say, hey, it happens out there. People that we're working with, they come up with funds or have access to monies that are maybe less than conventional what the general public would think.
But before you go into these sources, sometimes you're speaking to them about the market, about who's winning offers and who's not winning offers. That's something that you're doing before you do the deep dive into their individual situation. Before we do these alternative down payment sources, talk to me about what your advice is for the folks out there that are looking at properties and what their expectations could be based on the particular property they're looking at. You know pretty well if it's going to be a line wrapped around Publix, or if you're going to get a crack at it based on just you getting your eyeballs on what the property looks like.
It's well said. I use the analogy of, I'm going to use the iPhones as an example. You know, if you're going into the store and the iPhone 13 was just released, there's a ton of people that have interest in that. It's the brightest, shiniest object, the latest and greatest, as that would equate to a home. That is a home that is in a desirable location, has amenities that fit many family needs, whether it's number of bedrooms, bathrooms, and it's also a home that has been updated within the last 10 years, meaning that a buyer could look at that and say, all I have to do is figure out where to put my furniture and transfer the utilities. So that's the equivalent of the iPhone 13. There's a lot of demand for that because it's cool. Now, if you're going to go back and say, all right, maybe an iPhone 12 or 11 is something that I can live with. Now you may be at the front of that line as opposed to being buried in the other line. So homes that maybe have some of the amenities, the location, the bedrooms, bathrooms, but that hasn't been touched in 15 to 20 years as far as cosmetic updates, or maybe in need of an HVAC system or the roof, then you're going to have a better chance to get to the front of that line than the one that is literally perfect.
Okay, so this is important to everybody watching as they start to formulate their offers and they're looking at these alternative payment sources. I'm going to share the screen real quick. We're going to give you guys a breakdown. This is what we're feeling and what we're seeing from the applications that we have going. Ken, can you see that screen okay?
I can, yep. And it looks like it's on the Facebook page as well. So I think you're good.
Okay, awesome. So I was a little bit surprised to see retirement accounts as high as it was, but remember, we have a ton of first-time home buyers that are trying to purchase, and you know, they've done a decent job of stuffing some monies away there in order to have a chance to win. So if it's not a cash buy, this is all mortgage money that we're talking about here on the screen. These are folks that need to use financing to purchase the home. So remember, throw all the cash buyers out of the way now. And then we have what's left, which is basically move uppers and first timers. Real quick, 401k, IRA, anything you want to add on that about pulling monies out of there for your down payment?
You know, we've had more people be open to that because the first conversation we have is I don't want to touch my retirement funds, and we don't want you to either. But that is a way that you can get access to funds. I call it a short-term bridge to your ultimate goal. It's super easy for the mortgage process. It's very easy for buyers to get that transaction completed with their 401k companies. So it's just a great alternative. We do not think it's a long-term solution, but it's a way that gives you an opportunity to proceed quick and clean.
Excellent. Perfectly said. Any of these options up here, these are options for you. They're not, you should do retirement account first and then move down the line. We're not saying that at all.
Well said.
Okay, so the second one is slightly more confusing, or the most confusing one up on here. So this is for folks who were going to originally put maybe 50% down, 25% down on the home, but they get into that bidding war. They're more looking at the shiny object home, correct?
That's fair.
In trying to, they're going to have to increase their offer price to well over list price to win. So they don't necessarily put 50 or 25% down. It might equate to 15, 10, even 5% down. So that requires a little more hand holding and talking through before the offer goes in.
Well said. You know, everybody, when we talk to them initially, the first thing that comes out of the mouth is, I want to put 20% down because I heard PMI is expensive. But what you're describing is it allows us to do a loan that says you're putting less down and use your cash to cover an appraisal versus purchase price difference. And that's been, once we get into the conversation and use the math, that's much easier to follow along with a visual aid than whatever you and I are babbling about right now. But PMI is so inexpensive that when we show those alternatives, it's like a light bulb goes off. Again, back to what you said, we're not forcing you into anything, but it's just let the math help you decide what makes sense. So we are getting people that are paying PMI when they had enough money to put 20% down because of the appraisal differences or what they need to put on paper to win the offer. So it's a great alternative.
All right, anybody that wants to see what that looks like on paper, that's part of our strategy session. So reach out to us. We will obviously help you. It won't just be our diary of the mouth per se. We're going to put it on paper for you.
Anything we can do to get our face off the screen is a bonus.
Yeah, that's why I like sharing the screen today. It was
I can still
good
see
idea.
it.
I know. All right, Heloc, home equity line of credit. For the most part, these are done on a home that you already own, whether it be your primary, secondary investment property. Some folks will, as we move down to the next one, gift funds, get funds from folks who maybe don't have the cash, but they have the equity and they can pull the cash off the equity line. What do you want to tell us about that? These are mostly
okay. So this is
typically.
Yeah, but it's now, if we go back 6 to 9 months, it was still a little bit of an eye-opening for folks realizing that the marketplace is as competitive as it is for a buyer. Everybody in the world knows that it is a challenge. So when it comes to the HELOC or the gift funds, family members know what somebody's going through. And once that's shared, I'm hearing a lot of stories about, hey, my aunt, my uncle, my mom, my dad, they know what a challenge it is, and they said they're willing to help. So, as that relates to the gift funds, advancing some funds to help them actually make this work, whether that is cash, like you said, or it's coming from their own home equity line of credit. There's a lot more conversation about all of those than we've had in a very long time.
Home values all-time high. On paper, everybody looks to have their highest net worth they've seen possibly ever. Folks that are in that retirement age, our parents' age, they've benefited from the stock market and the home values increasing. So there's a lot of wealth in there. There's a lot of cash sitting in equity that can be used to facilitate the next purchase. The last part, miscellaneous, these are ones that we see. They're typically not a big portion of the down payment, but they certainly don't hurt if somebody's in a tight situation.
This is the time of the year between now and April that bonuses, tax refunds, those are big conversation points and reasons why people reach out because, hey, I don't have it yet, but I have a strong inclination or I know what's coming. How can we take that into account now and start planning? So those two things are really, really common just over the last couple of weeks. That will sort of fade as we get through the rest of the year, but good timing for those.
What we love about those is they can attack debt, free up their debt to income ratios to allow them to, back to number 2, put less down than they originally had anticipated. So there's a lot of debt restructuring that goes on here. As we're going through discussions, I know you just spoke with somebody purchasing in the next 9 to 12 months. And what a wonderful conversation that is, to know that you have time to help them make a difference, both on credit scores, debt restructuring, and seeing some monthly savings happen in that time frame before they embark on the mission. It just makes life so much easier for us.
It is. Yeah, it's a journey, and you can't race to the finish line in this marketplace. So it just requires, it's the way it should be anyways, but it just requires a little bit more conversation and forethought than we've seen in times past.
All right, so everybody watching, we are a sounding board for you, your agent, your mom, your dad, you as the person trying to purchase the home. Use us as a sounding board. We've been doing it forever. We do a lot of transactions. We've helped 849 families over the last 2 years. It's a big number. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of moving parts.
Not to interrupt, but if we look at what a successful real estate agent does in a calendar year, a successful real estate agent has the ability to work with 25 to 30 families a year and help them with their housing need. Back to your point, we're fortunate enough that we're talking to 150 to 200 people a month. And so there's just sometimes there's some experiences or conversations that we've had that we can share that may trigger thoughts. So back to your point of the sounding board, that's what we do all day.
That's fun. That's one of the fun things that we actually get to do throughout the day, is just have a basic conversation like we're having right now. Invite your friends, family, coworkers to this group. Let's bring them in here. Let's get them access to some of this information that we're talking about. We don't see values going down. Interest rates are closing in at 4% right now. That's up a point in 60, 75 days. It's insane. But that's not slowing demand down. There's just not enough inventory to keep up. So
that's our wish, right? That people just reach out to have a conversation. There's no financial commitment. There's no obligation, but it may be helpful to satisfy curiosity, to keep you moving in the direction that you guys feel comfortable with. So that's our wish. It's like, don't let this be more intimidating than it is. It's a super casual conversation of some things that may help trigger additional thoughts.
Yeah, many times folks have gotten went to get a second opinion, right? Third opinion.
For sure, yeah.
And they've come back and said, hey, I really appreciate how this went with you up front. I had to do my due diligence, make sure that I felt comfortable moving forward. Everything that you guys have provided as far as those visual aids, we're going to talk more about that here on one of our lives. We're going to get into some of that strategy where you get to show a little bit more of how that breaks down. But guys, thank you so much for the support. We're crazy busy. Ken's calendar, it's nuts. So he's hanging on for the ride. And anything else you want to add?
Believe it, in the 25 years that we've been doing this is probably the most challenging time, but it's been the most rewarding time that I can remember in working with folks trying to buy a home, because there's more conversation, and it really gives us a chance to almost create a friendship over this period of time, from the start to the finish. And when we say the casual conversation, it really is just that. But there's a lot more conversation with folks throughout the process than I can remember since we've started doing this.
Awesome stuff. Thanks for all the awesome info. We will catch up with you next week.
All right, good job. Catch up with you.
Bye.